In doing a Dogma sequel, I've encountered a wrinkle that didn't exist when I wrote and directed Dogma. Dogma is a movie that's written and directed by somebody that believes in everything that you see on that screen. He's not making fun of it. Dogma's not a movie that attacks religion. That was the thing I was always worried about with all the sturm and drang around the movie, where people are like, oh, it is a movie that mocks faith. Didn't. You know, like that meant some people might come in looking for Monty Python and the Holy Grail. I didn't make that movie. Like Monty Python could at the church. That movie, Dogma, is reverent. It upholds everything, all the tenets of the Catholic faith. Perhaps it, casts a suspicious eye or hairy eyeball toward the Catholic Church, the fundamental organization. But at the end of the day, I always thought that movie was so incredibly, not just pro-faith, but pro-Catholic. So the kid who wrote and directed that movie comes from belief. The old man who's writing and directing the follow-up, he doesn't have that same faith anymore. I don't carry that cross, so literally. So how do you tell that story? And that's how I'm going to tell the story, from a place of a lack of faith. And we'll see what happens. I love people that believe with all their hearts. I wish I could be one of those cats again. Life was so much easier when I had faith. When you could just be like, JC, take the wheel. Life is an easy ride. There are no problems. You will always be protected. Those of us that don't practice a faith, don't have a faith, feel like we are alone. And that's very easy to break when the weight of the world is on your shoulders, when the weight of life. I don't know, there's no incident I can't point to, like, my father died and I tore my shirt. I mean, honestly, if I could point to anything, and I ain't blaming him, but like, we did a podcast for so many years, me and Scott Mosier, called Smodcast. And this is the one that impacted me the most, right? A conversation we had. It was talking about how, like, it was impossible for me to get my head around the fact that he didn't believe there was a heaven, like, or a hell. After all this, there has to be something. There has to be reward. And he goes, well, you need to believe that. He's going, because your ego is so incredibly big, you can't fathom a world that exists without you. He goes, but I know the world will go on just fine without me. And I was like, well, what are we then, if we're not something that goes on to something else? And he goes, I said, I got all this information, everything I've ever learned, I'm packed with all this information. I can't just die and rot in the ground. And he goes, your laptop has a lot of information on it, tons of data. He's going, what happens when it spins out? Where's that information go? And the moment I started thinking of myself as a hard drive, it was harder to think of myself as, a child of light. My wife at one point was like doing yoga, and she hung some like Buddhist wall hangings all over. And I saw this wall hanging, this Buddhist wall hanging, and it said, may you realize your divinity in this lifetime. And what it said to me, and I'm not saying this needs to be for anybody else, but what it said to me is like, you're good. You don't need to placate yourself the way you did as a kid. Like, it's important to remember that you are in charge. Why do you keep handing over the wheel to somebody that isn't really there? Like, and I'm not talking about isn't really there as a matter of faith, but isn't really there, even if you believe in Jesus. Jesus isn't a physical manifestation at this point, not until he returns. So at that point, I felt like I was being irresponsible with my life. I was turning it all over to a ghost, a holy ghost, but a ghost nonetheless. The lesson of that was not like I am God, but I'm in charge. And for me to constantly be going like, JC will take care of things, is incredibly irresponsible and for me, personally, childish. So that's the prism I'm gonna be writing a Dogma follow-up through. The first one was all about like, hey man, this is everything I believe. And everything you see here is not me ironically going like, that's me going like, no, that was what I was taught. Like, that's what I believe. This is the faith of my father, the faith of my mother. This time around, it'll be a little bit different, fed through a different ethos altogether.